All right. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Diversity Dialogues. I'm Courtney Letema. I'll be leading this series with a little help from some friends along the way. The goal of the series is really just to get companies talking about what's working, what isn't, where we can help each other along the way. We'll be speaking with a number of customers and partners of ours about why diversity and inclusion and equity are important to them and their company. We'll discuss what their company goals are, what they're doing to reach them, and perhaps a few hurdles that they've run into along the way. I'm very, very excited to kick off the series with Scott Winslow, not just because he's my boss, but because without his support for our diversity and outreach group, none of this is possible. He's been extremely supportive of us and letting us do the things that we've been able to do over the last couple of years. So I'm excited to get this going. Scott, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really grateful that you've agreed to kind of be our guinea pig in our first episode for the series.
Good morning, Courtney. Yeah, excited to be here. Let's go.
Awesome. So I personally know a lot about what we're doing in terms of the diversity and outreach group, but I'm interested to hear your perspective of things. So I'm going to kind of kick off with why is diversity and inclusion and equity important to our company? Essentially, why did you say yes? Why did you let us start the group? Why are we doing what we're doing?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, first of all, and thank you for being a leader on this topic within our company. I think there's probably two main reasons that diversity and outreach are important to Winslow Technology Group. And then I'd like to also talk about why it's kind of important to me personally. But from an organizational standpoint, I think, like I said, I think there's two major reasons. One is the more diversity you have in the team, the more you're bringing a breadth of experience to what we're doing, to your day-to-day activities, to your planning, the way you go about problem solving, the way you go to market. The more breadth, the more diversity on the team, the better the solutions that you're going to come up with. So I think, it ends up becoming a real strength for the company. So that's number one. Number two is the reality in the marketplace is that today there's like 0% unemployment in the IT industry, particularly in the Northeast, where we operate from, Maine to Tennessee. There is a dearth of talent that's available. So as an organization, we're looking for really capable, talented, skilled, enthusiastic people that our customers and our partners are going to gravitate to. And it's incumbent on us to cast a wide net. We need to be inclusive in that search for great resources. We're looking for pre-sales engineering, post-sales engineering, salespeople, finance people, marketing people, administrative people, project managers. And we're going to be a better company if we're casting a wide net and looking at all the talent that can come into the company, regardless of skin color, regardless of gender, and regardless of sexual orientation. So that's a company perspective. From a personal perspective, for me, I feel like, and I'm not sure if it was my upbringing from my parents, the way I grew up, but I feel like I'm just personally an open and inclusive person. I have, my wife is from Argentina. She came over here on an H-1B visa to finish up her PhD work at Mass General Hospital. What a life enriching experience, that has been for me. I've got family in Argentina. My two boys have, 7 cousins there, and the grandma and tios and tias in Argentina. And I just think, that's been, as I said, a life enriching experience. I have a social network of Latino friends through my wife that we spend, a lot of time with. So I think for me, those are some of the life choices, that I've made. And I think a great example when I talk about, coming to better decisions or better outcomes when you have a wide range of perspectives. During a Super Bowl, when I initially met my wife, I told her that this is the biggest sporting event in the world, and it was really important, and we were going to a party. And she laughed and said, "The biggest sporting event in the world is the World Cup, Scott."
Yes.
It was, how many people are going to watch Super Bowl? And I'm like, I don't know, 50 million. And she said, it's tenfold that for the World Cup. So when I look at that, now I still love the NFL, but my boys are playing club soccer, they're playing town soccer. We're soccer moms and dads, and that's been a very enriching part of our experience. And I think that example is a great one. When you look at from my views, about the NFL, and the world game truly is soccer, and how eye-opening that was. So that's why this diversity initiative is so important to me personally and to the company. I'm hoping I'm leading by example there and providing some good leadership in that sense. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so funny to hear you talk about those things because so my mom actually is Hispanic. I know it's not easy to tell, but we call all of our aunts and uncles tias and tios also. We don't hear that often. So like all of our kids, whenever they talk about their aunts and uncles, it's always tias and tios. And people are always asking us, what does that mean? Like, why do you do that? So I didn't know you guys had did the same thing. So that's fun to learn about.
Yeah, it's wonderful. My kids are both bilingual. We have Spanish lessons twice a week here in the Winslow household. I'm probably the worst Spanish speaker here, but I'm getting there. But I think that's a great skill to have, and I think it gives them a wide lens as well.
Absolutely, that's awesome. So I guess the next question is kind of what goals are we setting as a organization surrounding diversity, equity, inclusion? It's obviously important. But what goals are we setting and where are we kind of measuring up to those goals?
Yeah, well, the goals that we're setting are to, I guess along continuous improvement lines. It's kind of take a baseline. I mean, a lot of this, really came out of the diversity and outreach group that you lead. I think just to provide some background, what we do these annual surveys for the employees in the company to get feedback, and a couple things came out loud and clear. One, the team didn't feel like we had a lot of diversity on the team, and two, that we tended to focus very much on our kind of our sales culture and sales orientation, and maybe not everybody was being recognized equally. So we really, I'd like to think we have big ears, but certainly I'd say the diversity and outreach effort or diversity inclusion effort has been born from our employees, and once those concerns were brought forward to the management team, I think we've listened well and we've moved into action. So to answer your question specifically, the first thing we did was your team did was to kind of said, okay, where are we now? And we were sitting at about 8% non-white employees and about 25% female employees. And so, our goal is to, increase those numbers and to continuously improve. We'd like to reach, I'd say in the next several years, let's say by 2025, we'd like to increase that to 15% non-white, and from a female worker standpoint, we'd like to get that up to 30%. We have partners like Dell. I think maybe some of their moonshot goals that they have, are good to look at. I think by their moonshot goals, I believe by 3030 that Michael Dell had laid out was it was 25% non-white, and I believe it was 40% female workers. So I think that may be a good North Star for us to look at, and it's important to have partners that are helping to set direction as well in that regard. So that's where we'd like to get to.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to note that we are a smaller company. So we look at Dell and we look at those goals, and their goals, they're hiring hundreds of people a year, right? Like we're hiring maybe like 10 or 12 people a year. So those numbers will start to creep up, but it's going to be a little bit of a longer process for us if we're looking just at percentages. And we just be transparent with each other about that. We know that as a leadership team, we know what those goals are, and we just have to continue to communicate those things. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about the goals that we've set. I feel optimistic about them. I think we're doing the right things to get there.
When you have 60 employees, one or two hires or 3 hires can really be impactful.
Absolutely.
Again, we need really good, skilled, enthusiastic, candidates to join our team. And so, that's, that's the most important thing, is that we have really good people joining our team. We think by creating those goals, that can help us, with that.
Absolutely.
With that yeah.
So that kind of takes me to my next question, which who's responsible for making sure those goals are met? So who's kind of leading that charge, and who's responsible for all that stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm responsible for that,
Right.
along with the leadership team, I would say. Ultimately, that responsibility, falls with me. I think, I think within our company, the initiative and drive for this has come from the diversity and outreach group with you and, 8 to 10 other members of the team have driven and made this a priority. But ultimately, that responsibility falls with me and our team, and we need to be accountable. What we're hoping to see is continuous improvement and to be able to get to those goals.
Absolutely. And how are we, when we're going about hiring and workplace culture, how are we kind of promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion? How do you see that day to day within the company?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the things we've realized is that we weren't talking to many diverse candidates. And when you're not interviewing many diverse candidates, it's very hard to hire diverse candidates. So we've had a number of efforts. We have a big co-op program where we're bringing in, it's really an entry-level program where we bring in students that are in school, a lot of them at Northeastern, but there are other schools that are involved as well, Wentworth, Holy Cross, many more. And now when we're bringing those students in, we're very focused on hiring diverse candidates there so we can bring them into the company. They come in for 6 months. And then when they graduate, we have an opportunity to bring them in full time. So I think that's been one way, is we've tried to increase our access to diverse candidates through that program. We've made contact with historically backed colleges, and you've got to, if you want to hire more diverse candidates, you've got to have a network where you're getting access to diverse candidates. We've hired a recruiter to source candidates in general, but there's been a focus on finding diverse candidates, and we've interviewed a lot more diverse candidates because of that recruiter. Now that's an investment you have to make as a company, because that doesn't come free. That's a choice. And that's why it does, we do require, good leadership to bring this forward. I think the other thing is, we've tapped organizations locally like Tech Foundry in Springfield, Mass, who has a initiative to bring more diverse candidates into the IT workplace. And so, some have moved along great, some it's trial and error, but we're trying to find a way that we're networking with a more diverse group of candidates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at IT as a whole, historically, it hasn't exactly been a very diverse industry. So I think the only way that we make it a diverse industry is we take that responsibility on ourselves and bring people into the fold and bring people into those networks. And as you network into more diverse groups, that diversity just continues to grow. So I'm really excited about kind of the partnerships we're doing with some of the HBCUs, Northeastern as well. And it's just been fun to kind of watch all that unfold. And Gary, our recruiter, has been super helpful with that as well. So in terms of goals, so we've talked about what are the goals, how are we meeting them, who's responsible for them. So I guess the next follow-up question is how are we communicating this to the staff? How does the team know? How are we tracking these goals? And what's been the reaction of everyone as we're continuing to grow this diversity initiative?
Yeah, I'd say the way that we've been communicating them to date has mostly been through we have a Monday morning team call. So you and your team provide a diversity update on the Monday call. The quarterly business reviews or quarterly sales meetings. So that's we get the whole group together via Zoom right now. We've done, diversity and outreach updates, during those meetings. It's probably an area where we can improve some, I'd say, as I was going through, kind of getting ready for this interview. I think that's an area where we can do probably better in terms of communicating it, because it needs to come from the leadership team as well as it does just from the diversity and outreach group. So you have my commitment that we'll, improve that. We know there's always areas we can improve, but I think that's certainly an area that we can improve upon. But that's how it's been communicated today, is largely through that group. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in terms of like everybody's reaction and the company as a whole, I feel like we have a lot of buy-in for the company. It's been really good to see. Just speaking from our diversity group in general, if I look at who's on our diversity group, we have people from just about every organization. So we have people from the leadership team, the sales team, the back end like finance team. We have kind of like a group of people coming from all different portions of our organization. And so it's been fun to kind of see everybody get involved. And when you have people from every org involved, that message is just continued throughout their organizations and trickles down to the teams. So it's been really fun to kind of watch and spearhead that a little bit.
I would agree. I didn't address that part of the question, but I would definitely agree with your assessment. I think we've seen that in the feedback with that in the surveys. And I think because this issue was kind of originally brought up from our employee base that, hey, we're not very diverse. I think that's one of the reasons that it's being openly received, because that was kind of the impetus for, was that communication in the first place. So I would agree. I think it's been very well received. I think there's a lot of buy-in, and I think there's a lot of action that's going on to, to help us improve in this area.
Awesome. All right. I mean, that you're off the hot seat. Those were the heavy hitter questions. I think for me and from on behalf of our team, we just want to thank you for the support, obviously, you've given us for the last couple of years. We're really excited to kick off this series and bring in other partners and customers and hear from them and learn from them and just see how we as an industry can do better. Because it's great for Winslow to be doing good things, but we as an industry have to all kind of band together and do better things and be better. So I'm really excited. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I certainly don't feel like I'm on the hot seat. I enjoy the communication. I guess, when I look at the company and the success that we've had, which I think has been, remarkable, there's no way that we would be where we are today without the leadership of a diverse team, whether that's color of skin, whether that's gender, whether that's sexual orientation. I can think of, the incredible strides and growth the company's had, and that a diverse group has been at that leadership company. And so I think it's a real strength for us, and happy to participate in it. And we'll see how we do as we go along on this journey.
Awesome. Thank you. For anybody who is actually listening, we'll have another episode soon. So keep your eyes and ears out. But thank you guys for listening and tuning in. Until next time.
Thanks, Courtney.